The VA hospital corridors had become as familiar to Sarah Martinez as the military bases she'd once called home. At 52, she carried herself with the same disciplined posture that had defined her 23 years of service in the Army Corps of Engineers. A titanium knee and a network of surgical scars told the story of her last deployment in Afghanistan, where she'd coordinated critical infrastructure repairs under constant threat. Her small ranch-style home in Colorado Springs stood as a testament to her life's work, carefully maintained, practical, with subtle touches that spoke of her travels. Photographs from her military years lined the hallway. Sarah in her dress uniform, standing beside bridges and water treatment facilities she'd helped construct, metals glinting under carefully placed museum lights. Each image captured a moment of professional pride, a life dedicated to rebuilding and protecting. After medical retirement, Sarah had channeled her engineering skills into local community projects. She consulted with nonprofits, helped design sustainable housing for veterans, and occasionally lectured at the local community college about infrastructure development in conflict zones. Her son, Michael, a financial advisor in Denver, seemed perpetually busy. Quick phone calls, rushed holiday visits, sporadic text messages that felt more like professional updates than genuine connection. The past few months had been particularly challenging. A complex knee revision surgery followed by unexpected complications had kept her in and out of the hospital. Michael had helped manage her medical paperwork, occasionally checking on her house, collecting mail. He'd been efficient, almost clinically so. But she appreciated that he was trying in his own way. Her medical treatments consumed most of her energy. The Army had taught her resilience, how to push through pain, how to adapt to challenging circumstances. Each physical therapy session was another mission, another obstacle to overcome. She'd survived roadside bombs and infrastructure challenges in some of the world's most dangerous regions. She wasn't about to let a stubborn knee defeat her now. Michael's wife, Elena, worked as a corporate lawyer in their Denver firm. They had 2 young children who seemed more like distant relatives than grandchildren. Holiday gatherings had become carefully scheduled events, more like professional meetings than family reunions. Sarah would bring carefully selected gifts, usually educational toys related to engineering or construction that might spark curiosity in her grandchildren. Her military pension and disability benefits provided a comfortable, if modest, living. She'd always been prudent with money, a skill honed during years of military service where resources were precious and waste was unacceptable. The house was paid off, her bills were minimal, and she had a small investment portfolio that she managed with the same strategic precision she'd once applied to military engineering projects. When the latest round of hospitalizations began, Sarah had been confident in her preparations. Medical power of attorney was assigned to Michael. Her financial affairs were meticulously organized. She'd spent years teaching her son about financial responsibility, sharing lessons from her years of military budgeting and strategic planning. The hospital room became her temporary headquarters. Medical charts replaced mission reports. Nurses became her new support team. She approached her recovery with the same methodical approach she'd used in reconstructing water systems in war-torn regions. Each physical therapy session was a mission, each improvement a strategic victory. Michael visited occasionally, always dressed in his sharp business attire. He'd review her medical charts, discuss treatment options with her doctors, and handle administrative tasks. Their conversations were cordial, professional, a far cry from the close relationship they'd shared when he was younger. Sarah sometimes wondered when the warmth had gradually been replaced by this clinical efficiency. Her military network remained her strongest support system. Fellow veterans would call, send care packages, share updates. They understood the unique challenges of recovery, of transformation. These connections kept her grounded, reminding her that she was more than her current medical situation. Little did Sarah know that while she was navigating the complex terrain of medical recovery, another battle was brewing, one that would challenge her in ways her military training had never prepared her for. The sterile hospital walls held secrets, a narrative of betrayal that was about to unfold, threatening everything she had built, everything she had protected. Her titanium knee, a symbol of her resilience, would soon become a metaphor for her upcoming fight, strong, unyielding, capable of withstanding pressures that would break others. The quiet corridors of the VA hospital held no hint of the storm approaching, of the familial betrayal that would test her spirit in ways no battlefield ever had. The first whispers of trouble came through a seemingly innocuous conversation with her physical therapist, Jennifer. A veteran herself, Jennifer had a way of reading between the lines that went beyond typical medical small talk. "Have you spoken with Michael recently about the house?" she asked one afternoon, her hands carefully manipulating Sarah's recovering knee. Sarah paused, catching the slight hesitation in Jennifer's voice. "Just the usual updates about mail and maintenance," she responded, her military-trained instincts picking up on the unspoken implication. Jennifer quickly changed the subject, but the seed of unease had been planted. Over the next few weeks, subtle inconsistencies began to emerge. Michael's phone calls became shorter, more guarded. When Sarah mentioned needing to review some property documents, he would deflect, promising to handle everything with a tone that suggested she shouldn't worry. For a woman who had spent decades managing complex engineering projects in war zones, being told not to worry was increasingly irritating. Her veteran support group provided an unexpected source of insight. During one of their monthly meetups, now conducted via video call due to her recovery, her friend Rosa, a retired Air Force logistics specialist, made an offhand comment. "You know how kids are these days," Rosa said, "always thinking they know best." The remark seemed casual, but it carried a weight that made Sarah's military-honed instincts sharpen. Bank statements began arriving with slight irregularities. Michael had always helped manage her finances, a responsibility she'd initially appreciated given her focus on recovery. But now, certain transfers and communications felt different. There was a precision to the financial maneuvering that felt less like assistance and more like something else entirely. A chance conversation with her neighbor, Tom, a retired Navy electrician who kept a watchful eye on the neighborhood, provided another subtle clue. "Saw a real estate agent taking photos of your place last week," he mentioned casually while helping her collect packages. "Thought that was odd, given you're not looking to sell." The pieces were beginning to form a picture Sarah wasn't sure she wanted to see. Her engineering background had always been about understanding complex systems, about seeing how individual components connected. Now, she was applying that same analytical approach to her own family dynamics. Elena, her daughter-in-law, had been particularly distant during her hospitalization. The occasional text messages felt formulaic, devoid of genuine concern. When Sarah had mentioned needing help with some home maintenance during her recovery, Elena's responses were increasingly terse, always deferring to Michael. Financial documents began to arrive with increasing frequency. Michael's explanations became more elaborate, more complicated. He spoke of restructuring and optimizing her assets, terms that felt more like corporate jargon than genuine family support. For a woman who had built bridges and water systems in some of the world's most challenging environments, these explanations rang hollow. Her military contacts provided an unexpected support network. Rosa, her Air Force friend, suggested Sarah request complete copies of her financial records. "Trust, but verify," she advised, using a phrase that resonated with Sarah's years of military protocol. The VA hospital became more than a place of recovery. It became a command center. Sarah began collecting information, requesting documents, making careful notes. Her hospital room bulletin board transformed into a tactical analysis board, with sticky notes connecting various financial statements and communications. Michael's visits became shorter, more orchestrated. He would arrive with meticulously prepared, Documents, always steering conversations away from anything substantive. His professional demeanor, once something she had admired, now felt like a carefully constructed barrier. Late one night, unable to sleep, Sarah began methodically reviewing the documents Michael had been managing. Her engineering training kicked in, breaking down complex systems, identifying potential points of vulnerability. Something wasn't adding up. Mortgage statements, property tax documents, bank transfers. Each piece felt like part of a puzzle she was desperate to solve. The titanium in her knee seemed to pulse with a reminder of her resilience. She had reconstructed critical infrastructure in war zones, managed projects under impossible conditions. Whatever was happening, she would face it with the same strategic approach that had defined her military career. Her son's increasing evasiveness was a tactical signal. Something was happening, something he didn't want her to know. The same skills that had kept her alive in conflict zones were now turning inward, analyzing the most personal of battlegrounds, her own family. Little did Michael know that every carefully constructed explanation, every deflection, was only sharpening his mother's resolve. Sarah Martinez was not a woman to be underestimated. Her recovery was about to take on a meaning far beyond physical rehabilitation. A different kind of mission was forming, one of uncovering truth, of protecting what was hers. The VA hospital room, with its sterile walls and mechanized bed, was about to become the staging ground for a battle Michael could never have anticipated. Sarah's tactical mind was fully engaged, her warrior spirit awakening with a clarity that cut through pain, through uncertainty, through familial deception. The document arrived on a Tuesday morning, tucked between medical reports and get well cards, a simple manila envelope with official letterhead that made Sarah's hands momentarily freeze. Real estate listing documents for her Colorado Springs home, a property she had owned for over 2 decades, a sanctuary she had meticulously maintained through years of military service and personal challenges. Her fingers traced the glossy photographs of her own home, now presented as a commodity, professional shots that captured her carefully tended garden, the custom-built wheelchair ramp she had designed after her last deployment, the solar panels she had installed as part of her commitment to sustainable living. Each image felt like a violation, a betrayal more profound than any battlefield encounter. The listing details were clinical, detached, square footage, recent upgrades, neighborhood comparables, her entire life reduced to a set of marketable attributes. But it was the listed seller that stopped her breath. Michael David Martinez, her only son, listed as the sole property owner. Sarah's military training kicked in immediately. Years of strategic planning, of analyzing complex scenarios under extreme pressure, began to process the information. Her mind compartmentalized, separating emotion from analysis. She pulled out her meticulously organized file of property documents, spreading them across her hospital bed like a tactical map. The original property deed told a different story. When she had purchased the home after her medical retirement, the documentation was crystal clear. The house was solely in her name, purchased with her military pension and disability benefits. Michael had helped with some paperwork, but he was never listed as an owner. A series of phone calls confirmed her growing suspicion. The local county recorder's office, her longtime bank manager, even the VA benefits coordinator. Each conversation peeled back another layer of the emerging betrayal. Somehow, during her months of hospitalization, Michael had maneuvered to transfer the property title. Her veteran support network became an unexpected intelligence-gathering team. Rosa, her Air Force friend, contacted a legal advisor specializing in veteran property rights. Tom, the Navy electrician neighbor, began documenting the real estate agent's visits. Information flowed to Sarah like tactical intelligence, each piece building a more complete picture of the situation. The medical team noticed a change in her demeanor. Jennifer, her physical therapist, watched as Sarah's rehabilitation took on a new intensity. Each physical therapy session became a metaphor for her emerging resolve. The titanium knee that had been a symbol of her vulnerability now represented her growing strength. Financial documents told a more complex story. Michael had not just listed the property, he had taken out a significant mortgage against the home's value. Bank statements revealed transfers, refinancing documents, a complex web of financial maneuvers executed during her most vulnerable period. Sarah remembered the conversations they'd had about financial planning. Michael, always the dutiful son, had positioned himself as her financial advisor. He'd helped her navigate complex VA benefits, manage investment portfolios, handle medical insurance claims. Each interaction now felt like a carefully constructed facade. Her military contacts provided crucial support. A retired JAG officer in her network began reviewing the documentation, identifying potential legal vulnerabilities. Veterans advocacy groups were alerted, ready to provide support and guidance. The hospital room transformed. Medical charts were now interspersed with legal documents, property records, financial statements. Sarah's bed became a command center, her analytical mind breaking down the complex scenario with the same precision she once used to plan infrastructure projects in war zones. Elena's role became increasingly suspicious. Text messages and emails revealed a calculated approach. Carefully worded communications that maintained a veneer of concern while systematically isolating Sarah from critical information. The corporate lawyer's professional skills had been turned toward a deeply personal betrayal. Sarah began documenting everything. Years of military record-keeping had made her meticulous. Every phone call was noted, every document copied, every conversation remembered with crystal clarity. She was building a case, gathering evidence with the same thoroughness she had once used to plan complex engineering projects. The VA hospital staff watched her transformation. What had been a recovery room became a strategic planning center. Nurses would find her surrounded by documents, her sharp mind cutting through financial complexities with surgical precision. Her physical recovery seemed to accelerate, fueled by a growing sense of determination. Michael's visits became increasingly awkward. His carefully constructed narrative began to crumble under Sarah's direct questioning. Evasive responses, complicated explanations. Each interaction revealed more about his intentions than he realized. Her son had made a fundamental miscalculation. He had viewed her hospitalization as a moment of weakness, an opportunity to manipulate financial systems. What he didn't understand was that Sarah Martinez was not someone to be underestimated. Her years of military service had taught her resilience, strategic thinking, and the art of turning seemingly impossible situations into opportunities for victory. The titanium in her knee seemed to pulse with a reminder of her strength. She had reconstructed critical infrastructure in war zones, managed projects under impossible conditions. This challenge, this betrayal by her own son, would be approached with the same strategic mindset that had defined her military career. Sarah Martinez was preparing for battle, not a battle of weapons or physical confrontation, but a battle of intellect, of legal strategy, of reclaiming what was rightfully hers. Michael had chosen the wrong moment, the wrong opponent. The triggering incident was more than a property listing. It was the moment Sarah Martinez decided to fight back, to protect not just her home, but her entire legacy of hard-earned independence. The moment of true clarity came during a late-night conversation with Rosa, her closest veteran friend. Fluorescent hospital lights cast a harsh glow as Sarah laid out the intricate web of financial manipulations her son had orchestrated. Rosa's voice, weathered by years of military service, cut through the clinical hospital atmosphere with brutal honesty. "You're not just a victim here," Rosa said, her Air Force logistics training evident in her precise analysis. "You're a strategic asset who's been systematically undermined." Sarah's mind began to reconstruct the entire narrative. Each financial document, each subtle manipulation became a puzzle piece. Michael hadn't just attempted to sell her house, He had been methodically dismantling her financial independence. The mortgage he'd taken out wasn't just a simple refinancing. It was a calculated move to leverage her most significant asset. Her military training had always been about understanding complex systems. Infrastructure wasn't just about concrete and steel. It was about interconnected networks, vulnerabilities, strategic points of control. Now she applied that same analytical approach to her own life, to her family's betrayal. The VA hospital room became her operational headquarters. Medical charts hung alongside financial statements, property records spread across her bed like tactical maps. Each document was annotated, cross-referenced, analyzed with the same precision she once used to plan critical infrastructure projects in conflict zones. Jennifer, her physical therapist, noticed the transformation. The woman who had been focused solely on physical recovery was now engaged in a different kind of rehabilitation, a recovery of agency, of self-worth. Her titanium knee seemed to symbolize more than just physical resilience. It represented her unbreakable spirit. Memories surfaced, previously overlooked moments that now took on new significance. Michael's increasing involvement in her finances, Elena's strategic distancing, the carefully orchestrated family interactions, each was a calculated move in a long-term strategy of financial control. She discovered something more profound than the immediate betrayal. This wasn't just about a house or money. It was about her identity, her worth, her very existence in the family ecosystem. Michael and Elena had constructed a narrative that positioned her as increasingly irrelevant, a financial resource to be managed and eventually discarded. The Veteran Support Network became her intelligence-gathering team. Contacts from her military engineering days began providing insights, connecting dots. A retired JAG officer analyzed the legal implications. A former logistics specialist helped her map out the financial maneuvers. Sarah's medical records became another layer of evidence. The timing of Michael's actions coincided precisely with her most vulnerable period: extended hospitalization, complex medical treatments, moments of reduced capacity to monitor her own affairs. She traced the financial trail with the same methodical approach she'd used to map infrastructure vulnerabilities in war zones. Each transfer, each document told a story of calculated betrayal. Michael had leveraged her trust, her love, her vulnerability as tactical weapons. The revelation wasn't just about the financial betrayal. It was about a fundamental breach of the familial covenant. Years of sacrifice, her military service, her single-minded dedication to providing for her son, her continuous support, had been reduced to a transactional relationship. Her grandchildren became another painful point of reflection. They were being raised in an environment that viewed family as a strategic resource, not a sacred bond. The love and sacrifice she had poured into her son's life had been systematically commodified. Rosa's words echoed in her mind. "You're more than what they've reduced you to." Those words became a mantra, a strategic directive for her emerging resistance. The hospital room transformed. Medical equipment became less about her physical recovery and more about her emerging strategic planning. Her medical charts were now interspersed with legal documents, financial statements, property records. Her titanium knee, a symbol of her physical reconstruction, now represented something more. It was a metaphor for her emerging resilience, her ability to be reconstructed, to be stronger in the broken places. Sarah began to understand that this moment was about more than fighting a legal battle. It was about reclaiming her narrative, her identity. She wasn't just a mother or a veteran. She was a fully realized individual with agency, with rights, with a voice that would no longer be silenced. The medical staff watched her transformation. What had been a recovery room became a command center of personal liberation. Nurses would find her surrounded by documents, her sharp mind cutting through complex situations with surgical precision. Michael had made a fundamental miscalculation. He had viewed her hospitalization as a moment of weakness, an opportunity for financial manipulation. What he didn't understand was that Sarah Martinez was not someone to be underestimated. Her years of military service had taught her that true strength wasn't about physical power. It was about resilience, strategic thinking, the ability to turn seemingly impossible situations into opportunities for victory. The moment of realization was more than a discovery of betrayal. It was the moment Sarah Martinez decided she would no longer be a passive character in her own life story. She would become the author, the strategist, the hero of her own narrative. Her battle was just beginning, and she was ready. The Veterans Legal Aid Center occupied a modest brick building in downtown Colorado Springs, its windows overlooking a small memorial park dedicated to local service members. Sarah arrived precisely at 9 a.m., her medical folder in one hand, a meticulously organized binder of financial documents in the other. The receptionist, a retired Marine Corps veteran named Marcus, recognized the determined set of her jaw, a look he'd seen countless times among those who had served. "Ms. Martinez," he greeted her. "Attorney Rodriguez is expecting you." Elena Rodriguez's office was a testament to her commitment to veteran advocacy. Walls lined with certificates, photographs of landmark legal victories, and shelves filled with case files told a story of relentless fighting for those who had served. Unlike the sterile corporate environment Michael and his wife inhabited, this space felt alive with purpose. "Your son's actions are more complex than a simple property transfer," Elena explained, spreading the documents across her large oak desk. "He's essentially executed a financial maneuver that borders on elder financial exploitation." Each document told a story of calculated manipulation. The mortgage Michael had taken out against the house was structured to create maximum vulnerability. Buried in the fine print were clauses that would potentially strip Sarah of her primary asset, leaving her financially exposed. Her veteran support network became an intricate intelligence-gathering team. Rosa began connecting with her own network of military and legal contacts. Tom, the Navy electrician neighbor, started documenting everything: property visits, real estate agent interactions, any potential evidence of Michael's actions. Sarah's approach was methodical, engineering precise. She began reconstructing her entire financial history, tracing every transaction, every transfer. Her hospital room transformed into a strategic planning center. Medical charts hung alongside financial statements, property records spread across her bed like tactical maps. The VA benefits counselor became an unexpected ally. Margaret Thompson, a veteran herself, helped Sarah understand the full scope of her legal protections. "Your military service provides layers of protection most people don't realize," she explained, pointing out specific clauses in veteran protection laws. Physical therapy sessions with Jennifer took on a new dimension. Each exercise became a metaphor for her emerging strength. The titanium knee that had once symbolized her vulnerability now represented her resilience. Sarah approached her recovery with the same strategic mindset she'd used in military engineering, breaking down complex challenges into manageable components. Her financial reconstruction was surgical. Bank statements from the past 5 years were meticulously analyzed. Sarah discovered a pattern of gradual financial isolation, small transfers, subtle redirections of funds, carefully orchestrated to create maximum financial dependency. The veteran community became her support network. Weekly video calls with her support group transformed from casual check-ins to strategic planning sessions. Each member brought unique skills: legal expertise, financial analysis, emotional support. They had survived war zones. They understood how to fight systemic challenges. Michael had made a critical miscalculation. He viewed his mother as a passive resource, someone to be managed and eventually marginalized. What he didn't understand was the network of support, the collective strength of veterans who protect their own. Elena Rodriguez began preparing a multi-pronged legal strategy. "We're not just fighting a property transfer," she explained. "We're challenging a systematic attempt to financially disenfranchise a veteran." Sarah discovered something more profound than the immediate financial betrayal. This was about her identity, her worth beyond being a mother or a veteran. She was a complete individual with agency, with rights that extended far beyond the narrow narrative Michael had constructed. Her grandchildren became another point of reflection. The family culture that viewed relationships as transactional was something she was determined to challenge. Love, she realized, wasn't about financial control, but about genuine connection. The medical team at the VA hospital noticed her transformation. What had been passive recovery became active resistance. Her medical charts now told a story of not just physical healing, but emotional reconstruction. Community resources became critical. The local Veteran Support Center provided workshops on financial protection, legal rights for aging veterans. Sarah began attending these sessions, not just as a participant, but as someone gathering strategic intelligence. Her network expanded. Veteran advocacy groups, legal support organizations, financial counseling services, each became a potential resource in her emerging strategy. She was building an infrastructure of support, much like she had once built critical systems in conflict zones. The moment of true empowerment came not from a single action, but from a gradual understanding. Sarah wasn't just gathering strength to fight Michael. She was rebuilding her entire concept of self-worth, of familial relationships, of her place in the world. Her titanium knee seemed to pulse with a reminder of her resilience. She had reconstructed critical infrastructure in war zones, managed projects under impossible conditions. This challenge was another mission, another opportunity to demonstrate her strategic thinking. The gathering of strength was more than a preparation for legal battle. It was a complete reconstruction of her personal narrative. Sarah Martinez was redefining herself, not as a victim, not as a passive resource, but as a strategic, powerful individual with complete agency. Her battle was just beginning, and she was gathering an arsenal far more powerful than Michael could have ever anticipated. A network of support, legal expertise, financial intelligence, and an unbreakable spirit forged in years of military service. The hospital room, the II Legal Aid Center, the Veteran Support Network. These were no longer spaces of limitation. They were her new command center, her staging ground for a battle that would redefine everything. The conference room at the local county courthouse felt simultaneously familiar and foreign. Sarah Martinez sat with a composure that belied the internal storm brewing beneath her calm exterior. Elena Rodriguez sat beside her, a formidable presence in a crisp navy blazer, spreading out a meticulously prepared stack of documents that would serve as the foundation of their first legal challenge. The initial hearing for the temporary injunction against the property transfer was more than a legal proceeding. It was Sarah's first public stand against her son's betrayal. Her titanium knee, concealed beneath a tailored pantsuit, seemed to pulse with a rhythm of its own, a mechanical reminder of her resilience, of battles fought and survived. The plaintiff, Sarah Martinez, a decorated veteran with 23 years of service in the Army Corps of Engineers, challenges the unauthorized transfer of her primary residential property. Elena began, her voice steady and precise. Each word was a strategic weapon, carefully chosen to illuminate the depth of the betrayal. The documents told a complex story. Bank transfers, property deeds, medical records. Each piece of evidence revealed a calculated attempt to systematically strip Sarah of her financial independence during her most vulnerable period. Michael had chosen her extended hospitalization as an opportunity for financial manipulation, believing her medical challenges would render her powerless. What Michael didn't understand was the network of support Sarah had cultivated. Veterans from her support group filled the back of the courtroom, a silent, powerful show of solidarity. Rosa sat in the front row, her Air Force veteran status evident in her ramrod-straight posture. Tom, the Navy electrician neighbor, had meticulously documented every real estate interaction, providing critical supporting evidence. The judge, a woman in her early 60s with sharp eyes that had clearly seen their share of complex cases, listened intently. Judge Margaret Harrison was known for her no-nonsense approach and particular sensitivity to veterans' rights cases. Ms. Martinez, the judge addressed her directly. Can you elaborate on the specific circumstances that led to this property transfer? Sarah's response was measured, engineering precise. She outlined the timeline of her medical treatments, the gradual financial manipulations, the specific moments when Michael had systematically isolated her from her own financial resources. Her narrative was neither emotional nor accusatory. It was a strategic presentation of facts. Medical records demonstrated her extended hospitalization. Bank statements revealed a pattern of financial transfers that coincided precisely with her periods of reduced capacity. Each document was a piece of evidence, each fact a strategic point of attack. Michael sat on the opposite side of the courtroom, accompanied by his wife, Elena. Their corporate lawyer looked increasingly uncomfortable as Sarah's meticulously prepared case unfolded. The carefully constructed facade of familial concern was crumbling under the weight of documented evidence. The Veteran Support Network had been instrumental in gathering intelligence. Margaret Thompson from the VA Benefits Counselor's Office provided critical testimony about the protections afforded to veterans, highlighting the legal vulnerabilities in Michael's actions. This isn't just about a property transfer, Elena Rodriguez argued during her formal presentation. This is a systematic attempt to financially disenfranchise a veteran who has dedicated her life to serving this country. Ms. Martinez spent 23 years in the Army Corps of Engineers, rebuilding critical infrastructure in some of the world's most challenging environments. Her son's actions represent a profound betrayal of not just familial trust, but of the very values of service and sacrifice. The courtroom was silent, the weight of the accusation hanging in the air. Michael shifted uncomfortably, the first visible crack in his professional demeanor. Forensic financial analysis revealed a more insidious pattern. The mortgage Michael had taken out was structured with hidden clauses that would potentially strip Sarah of her primary asset. Buried in the fine print were mechanisms that would leave her financially exposed, vulnerable. Sarah's first stand was more than a legal challenge. It was a public declaration of her agency, her worth beyond being a passive resource to be managed and eventually discarded. She was reclaiming her narrative, her identity. The judge's preliminary ruling came swiftly. A temporary injunction would be issued, freezing the property transfer pending a full investigation. Michael would be required to provide complete financial documentation, explaining the circumstances of the transfer. Outside the courthouse, the Veteran Support Network gathered. No grand celebrations, no dramatic displays, just a quiet, powerful solidarity. Rosa embraced Sarah, whispering, "You've shown them who you are." The local veteran community began spreading the story, not as gossip, but as a testament to resilience. Sarah Martinez wasn't just fighting a legal battle. She was challenging a systemic approach that viewed aging veterans as disposable resources. Michael's corporate world began to feel the ripple effects. Professional networks whispered about the veteran who stood up against her own son's financial manipulation. The carefully constructed professional image was showing its first significant cracks. As Sarah left the courthouse, her titanium knee carrying her with steady determination, she understood something profound. This was more than a fight about a house. This was about reclaiming her dignity, her agency, her very sense of self. The first stand was never about winning a legal battle. It was about declaring, unequivocally, that she would no longer be silent, that her worth was not determined by her son's perception, but by her own indomitable spirit. The battle was just beginning. And Sarah Martinez was ready. The pushback came swiftly and strategically. Michael's corporate law firm mobilized with surgical precision. launching a multi-pronged attack designed to discredit and isolate Sarah. Family dynamics became a battlefield, with every past interaction now weaponized into potential evidence against her. Elena, Michael's wife, began a calculated campaign of character assassination. Family group chats transformed into strategic communication channels. Text messages and emails painted Sarah as an unstable, interfering mother who couldn't accept appropriate boundaries. Extended family members were quietly approached, each conversation carefully crafted to create doubt about Sarah's mental and emotional capacity. "She's struggling after her medical treatments," Elena would suggest to Sarah's siblings, her corporate lawyer's tone making the statement sound like a concerned observation. The stress of her recovery might be affecting her judgment. The first major assault came through financial channels. Michael filed a comprehensive counterclaim, arguing that Sarah was no longer capable of managing her own financial affairs. Medical records from her extended hospitalization were strategically interpreted to suggest cognitive decline. Psychiatric evaluations were requested, medical competency challenged. Sarah's veteran support network became her first line of defense. Rosa, with her Air Force logistics background, began gathering counterintelligence. Tom, the Navy electrician, started documenting every interaction, every communication. Margaret Thompson from the VA Benefits Office provided critical guidance, helping Sarah navigate the complex legal landscape. Michael's strategy was multifaceted. Beyond the legal challenge, he began a subtle campaign of emotional manipulation. Carefully worded communications to Sarah's grandchildren created distance. Holiday invitations became conditional, visits carefully controlled and monitored. The grandchildren became an unexpected emotional battleground. Carefully orchestrated phone calls designed to make Sarah feel distant, uninvolved. Birthday cards were sent with minimal personal messages, photographs shared sparingly. Each interaction felt like a calculated move to erode their connection. Extended family members found themselves caught in the crossfire. Sarah's siblings received conflicting narratives. Michael presented himself as a dutiful son trying to protect his aging mother from her own potentially destructive decisions. Sarah's brothers and sisters were systematically approached, each conversation designed to create doubt. Professional networks became another arena of attack. Michael leveraged his corporate connections, subtly suggesting that Sarah's legal challenge was the result of cognitive decline. Whisper campaigns began in professional circles, challenging her credibility. Elena Rodriguez, Sarah's attorney, recognized the sophisticated nature of the pushback. "This isn't just a legal battle," she explained during a strategy session. "This is a comprehensive attempt to discredit you across multiple domains: personal, professional, familial." The VA hospital staff became unexpected witnesses to the broader campaign. Medical records were scrutinized, every interaction potentially weaponized. Sarah's physical therapy sessions, her recovery progress, her medical communications, all became potential points of attack. Sarah's titanium knee became a metaphorical representation of her resistance. Just as the surgical implant had been precisely engineered to restore her mobility, she would engineer her legal and personal defense with equal precision. The Veteran Support Network transformed into a comprehensive support system. Legal experts, medical advocates, mental health professionals, each brought specific expertise to Sarah's defense. They understood this was more than a personal battle. It was a systemic challenge to veterans' rights. Financial institutions became another battleground. Michael attempted to freeze Sarah's accounts, challenge her financial competency. Bank managers received carefully crafted legal documents suggesting Sarah was no longer capable of managing her own finances. Social media became an unexpected front in the conflict. Carefully curated narratives began appearing, subtle posts suggesting family dysfunction, hinting at Sarah's potential mental instability. Each post was designed to create a digital narrative that could potentially influence public perception. The local veteran community watched the unfolding drama with growing concern. This wasn't just about one family's conflict. It represented a broader challenge to veterans' rights, to the dignity of aging service members. Sarah's medical team became critical allies. Comprehensive evaluations were conducted, documenting her mental acuity, her recovery progress. Each medical assessment became a strategic defense against Michael's claims of cognitive decline. Psychological evaluations became a key battleground. Michael's legal team sought comprehensive mental health assessments, attempting to prove Sarah was no longer capable of making sound decisions. Each evaluation became a carefully documented defense of her agency. The pushback extended to Sarah's professional network. Her consulting work with veteran support organizations was subtly challenged. Speaking engagements were questioned, her professional credibility systematically attacked. Elena Rodriguez prepared comprehensive counter-strategies. "We're not just defending against these claims," she explained. "We're exposing the systematic attempt to marginalize a veteran who has dedicated her life to service." The Veteran Support Network understood the broader implications. This wasn't just Sarah's battle. It represented a challenge to how society views aging veterans, how families can potentially exploit vulnerability. Sarah's first stand in the courthouse had opened a complex battlefield. Michael had underestimated not just his mother's resilience, but the comprehensive network of support she had cultivated through years of military service. Each attack, each strategic maneuver became an opportunity for Sarah to demonstrate her strength. The pushback was not a defeat. It was a catalyst for her most powerful resistance. The battle was far from over, and Sarah Martinez was just getting started. The Veterans Resource Center became Sarah's sanctuary of transformation. Located in a renovated warehouse in downtown Colorado Springs, the space was more than a community center. It was a crucible of personal reinvention. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, symbolizing the expansive possibilities that were unfolding in her life. Her physical therapy had long since transformed from a medical necessity to a personal mission of empowerment. Jennifer, her physical therapist, had become more than a medical professional. She was a witness to Sarah's metamorphosis. The titanium knee that had once symbolized limitation now represented resilience, each movement a testament to her ability to rebuild, to adapt, to overcome. Community classes became her new battleground of self-discovery. A veterans entrepreneurship workshop caught her attention, a program designed to help service members transition their military skills into civilian business ventures. Sarah's engineering background, her years of infrastructure development, in challenging environments, suddenly found new purpose. Infrastructure isn't just about physical structures, she told her workshop group during a presentation. It's about creating systems that support human potential. Her fellow veterans recognized the deeper metaphor, a woman reconstructing her own life with the same precision she once used to rebuild critical systems in war zones. The legal battle with Michael had become more than a family conflict. It was a journey of self-rediscovery. Each deposition, each legal document became an opportunity to redefine her identity beyond the roles of mother, veteran, victim. She was emerging as something entirely new, a strategist of her own life. Her veteran support network expanded beyond traditional boundaries. Rosa introduced her to a community gardening project run by veterans. What started as a simple hobby became a metaphor for personal growth. Sarah learned to nurture plants, to understand their resilience, to see parallels with her own journey of reconstruction. Professional consulting opportunities began to emerge. Her expertise in infrastructure development, combined with her recent experiences, made her a sought-after speaker for veteran support organizations. Workshops on financial independence, on navigating family dynamics, became her new mission. The Community Legal Aid Center where Elena Rodriguez worked became more than a legal resource. It transformed into a hub of empowerment. Sarah began volunteering, helping other veterans navigate complex legal and financial challenges. Her personal battle became a broader mission of support. Michael's attempts to marginalize her had an unexpected consequence. Each legal maneuver, each attempt to challenge, her competency only strengthened her resolve. She was documenting her journey, writing about her experiences, creating a narrative of resilience that extended far beyond her personal conflict. Her relationship with her grandchildren became a delicate negotiation of love and boundaries. Carefully orchestrated video calls, thoughtful gifts that spoke of her engineering background, a model bridge kit, a book about infrastructure development. She was creating connections that couldn't be easily severed by external manipulation. The VA hospital, once a place of medical vulnerability, became a platform for her advocacy. Sarah began working with patient support groups, sharing her experiences of navigating complex family and legal challenges. Her story became a beacon of hope for other veterans facing similar struggles. Photography became an unexpected outlet of expression. Documenting her journey, capturing moments of transformation, she discovered a new language of storytelling. Her engineering precision translated into a unique visual narrative of resilience. Financial independence became her most profound transformation. With guidance from veteran financial advisors, she began restructuring her investments, creating multiple streams of income, consulting work, speaking engagements, writing projects. Each became a building block of her new economic autonomy. The community living center where she now resided became more than a residential space. It transformed into a hub of veteran empowerment. Sarah organized support groups, workshops, creating a network of mutual support that extended far beyond her personal challenges. Her titanium knee became a powerful metaphor, just as the surgical implant had been precisely engineered to restore mobility. She was engineering her own life with similar precision. Each challenge was an opportunity for reconstruction, for growth. The legal battle with Michael continued, but it no longer defined her. She was building something far more significant, a life of purpose, of agency, of continuous reinvention. The conflict became just one chapter in a much larger narrative of personal transformation. Rosa, her Air Force veteran friend, watched this transformation with a mixture of pride and amazement. "You're not just surviving," she told Sarah during one of their regular coffee meetings. "You're redefining what it means to thrive?" Sarah's engineering background proved to be her greatest asset. She approached personal transformation with the same strategic thinking she had once applied to complex infrastructure projects. Each challenge was a system to be analyzed, understood, reconstructed. The narrative of victimhood was systematically dismantled. Sarah was writing a new story, one of resilience, of strategic reinvention, of finding purpose beyond familial expectations. Her transformation was not just personal, but a broader statement about veteran empowerment. As winter gave way to spring, Sarah looked out over the community garden she had helped establish. The carefully planted seeds were beginning to sprout, a perfect metaphor for her own journey of growth, of renewal, of unexpected possibility. The battle was far from over. But Sarah Martinez was no longer fighting. She was building. The mediation center occupied a neutral ground, a modern building with glass walls that seemed to promise transparency. Sarah arrived precisely at 10 a.m., her posture as straight as her military training demanded, her titanium knee steady beneath a tailored navy suit that spoke of both professionalism and quiet dignity. Michael sat across the room, flanked by his corporate lawyer. Elena, his wife, looked increasingly uncomfortable as Sarah's carefully prepared documentation was spread across the conference table. Years of engineering precision were evident in how Sarah had organized every piece of evidence: financial records, medical documents, property transfers, each telling a story of systematic betrayal. "This isn't about punishment," Sarah began, her voice calm and measured. "This is about understanding and accountability." The mediator, a retired judge with decades of experience in complex family disputes, listened intently. Margaret Harrison had seen countless family conflicts, but something about this case felt different. The meticulousness of Sarah's preparation, the layers of documented evidence, told a story far more complex than a simple property dispute. Michael's initial strategy of dismissal began to crumble. Each attempt to deflect was met with surgical precision. Sarah presented bank statements showing how he had gradually isolated her financially. Medical records demonstrated the timing of property transfers coinciding with her most vulnerable periods of hospitalization. "You viewed me as a resource to be managed," Sarah explained, "not as a mother to be respected." The conversation peeled back layers of family dynamics. Years of unspoken tensions, of gradual emotional distancing came into sharp focus. Michael's corporate mindset of efficiency had transformed familial love into a transactional relationship. Elena, his wife, became increasingly agitated. Her carefully constructed narrative of familial concern began to unravel. Text messages, emails, each piece of communication revealed a calculated approach to marginalizing Sarah. The Veteran Support Network's preparation became evident. Rosa, sitting quietly in the background, had helped Sarah anticipate every potential argument. Tom, the Navy electrician, had documented every interaction, providing additional context to Sarah's claims. "I raised you to understand the value of integrity," Sarah said, her voice cutting through Michael's corporate veneer. "Not just in business, but in human relationships." Medical experts brought in by Sarah's legal team provided comprehensive testimony. Her mental acuity, her capability, her right to financial independence, each was meticulously documented. The attempts to portray her as incompetent dissolved under professional scrutiny. The discussion expanded beyond the immediate property dispute. It became a broader examination of family dynamics, of generational approaches to care, of the treatment of aging veterans. Michael's professional facade began to crack. The carefully constructed narrative of a dutiful son protecting his mother's interest revealed itself as a calculated financial maneuver. Bank transfers, property documents, communication records, each told a story of systematic exploitation. Sarah's grandchildren became an unexpected point of discussion. The emotional manipulation, the carefully controlled interactions, each was brought into the light. Michael and Elena's approach to family relationships stood exposed in all its clinical complexity. The Veterans Advocacy Network had prepared Sarah comprehensively. Legal experts, financial advisors, medical professionals, each had helped her build an irrefutable case. This was more than a personal confrontation. It was a statement about veterans' rights, about familial respect. "You forgot the most important lesson," Sarah said, her voice steady. "Love isn't a transaction. It's a continuous act of respect." Michael's attempts to argue financial necessity began to sound hollow. Sarah had documented every financial transfer, every supposed moment of need. The narrative of struggling young parents dissolved under the weight of comprehensive evidence. The mediator recognized this was more than a typical family dispute. This was a systemic challenge to how families treat aging members, particularly veterans who have dedicated their lives to service. Elena's legal background became a double-edged sword. Her attempts to construct legal arguments only highlighted the moral bankruptcy of their approach. Each carefully worded statement revealed more about their motivations than they intended. Sarah's transformation became evident. She was no longer the passive mother waiting to be included. She was a strategic, empowered individual reclaiming her narrative, her dignity, her right to self-determination. The confrontation wasn't about winning or losing. It was about establishing a new framework of understanding, about demonstrating that familial love requires continuous respect, not strategic management. As the mediation session progressed, the power dynamics began to shift. Michael's corporate strategies, His attempts to control and manage began to crumble under the weight of comprehensive, meticulously prepared evidence. "I'm not asking for everything," Sarah said. "I'm asking for acknowledgement, for respect." The room fell silent. Years of unspoken tensions, of carefully constructed narratives hung in the air. The confrontation was becoming a moment of potential transformation. Michael looked at his mother, really looked at her, perhaps for the first time in years. The woman before him was not the passive, compliant mother he had imagined. She was a force of strategic intelligence, of unwavering dignity. The decisive confrontation was about more than a property dispute. It was about redefining family, about establishing boundaries, about recognizing the inherent worth of every individual, regardless of age or circumstance. Sarah Martinez had entered the room as a mother fighting for her rights. She would leave as something more, a symbol of resilience, of strategic intelligence, of the unbreakable spirit of service. The courthouse steps became a moment of transformation. Sunlight cast long shadows as Sarah Martinez stood surrounded by her veteran support network, the weight of her victory more profound than any legal document could capture. Elena Rodriguez, her attorney, stood beside her, not just as a legal representative, but as a witness to a remarkable journey of resilience. The legal ruling was comprehensive. Michael's attempts to manipulate her financial resources were not just challenged, they were systematically dismantled. The court's decision went beyond the immediate property dispute, establishing a precedent for protecting veterans' financial autonomy. "This isn't just about me," Sarah told the small group of reporters gathered outside. Her titanium knee stood steady, a metaphor for her unbreakable spirit. "This is about protecting the rights of veterans who have given everything to this country." Financial experts brought in during the proceedings had meticulously reconstructed the complex web of transfers, loans, and property manipulations. Each document revealed a calculated attempt to systematically strip Sarah of her financial independence during her most vulnerable period. The veteran community watched the proceedings with a collective sense of vindication. Rosa, Tom, Margaret, Thompson, each had been instrumental in building the support network that made this victory possible. This was more than an individual battle. It was a statement about the dignity of aging veterans. Michael's corporate law firm began to feel the repercussions. Professional networks whispered about the case, about the veteran who had not just fought back, but had done so with surgical precision. The carefully constructed narrative of familial concern had been exposed as a calculated financial strategy. Sarah's advocacy work began to take shape. Speaking engagements, workshops, consultations, she transformed her personal battle into a broader mission of empowerment. Veterans organizations sought her insights, her strategic approach to navigating complex family and financial challenges. The property at the center of the dispute became more than a physical asset. It was now a symbol of resilience, of the right to self-determination. Sarah chose to retain ownership, transforming the space into a resource center for veteran support services. Her relationship with her grandchildren began to rebuild, but on new terms. Carefully orchestrated interactions, meaningful conversations, a commitment to transparency. She wasn't seeking to replace their parents, but to establish a genuine connection based on mutual respect. Financial reconstruction became a critical part of her journey. With guidance from veteran financial advisors, Sarah began to rebuild her economic independence. Consulting work, speaking engagements, writing projects, each became a building block of her new economic autonomy. The community living center where she resided transformed. Sarah began organizing support groups, workshops, creating a network of mutual support that extended far beyond her personal challenges. Her experiences became a roadmap for other veterans facing similar struggles. Michael's attempts to challenge the ruling proved futile. Each legal maneuver was met with comprehensive documentation, with a network of support that he had fundamentally underestimated. The corporate strategies that had worked in his professional life failed in the face of Sarah's strategic intelligence. Elena Rodriguez had become more than her attorney. She was a partner in a broader mission of veteran advocacy. The case had exposed systemic vulnerabilities in how families can potentially exploit aging veterans, creating conversations about legal protections and familial responsibilities. Sarah's engineering background proved to be her greatest asset. She approached the reclamation of her power with the same strategic thinking she had once applied to complex infrastructure projects. Each challenge was a system to be analyzed, understood, reconstructed. The veteran support network expanded. Sarah's story became a beacon of hope, a demonstration that resilience isn't about avoiding challenges, but about transforming them into opportunities for growth. Speaking engagements, workshops, consultations, her influence grew exponentially. Her grandchildren began to understand the deeper narrative. Carefully curated interactions, meaningful conversations about service, about respect, about the true meaning of family. Sarah wasn't seeking to replace their parents, but to offer a different perspective. The property transfer became a symbol of broader systemic challenges. Legal experts began using her case as a reference point for protecting veterans' financial autonomy. What had begun as a personal battle was transforming into a broader movement of advocacy. Financial independence became her most profound victory. Multiple streams of income, strategic investments, a network of professional opportunities. Sarah was no longer dependent on familial goodwill. She had created her own economic ecosystem. Michael's professional network began to feel the ripple effects. The case had exposed a fundamental misunderstanding of familial responsibilities, of the value of veteran service. Whisper networks in corporate circles began to reassess their approach to aging family members. The community gardens Sarah had helped establish became a metaphor for her journey. Each carefully tended plant represented a piece of her reconstructed life, deliberate, strategic, full of unexpected beauty. The seeds of resilience she had planted were now bearing fruit. Her titanium knee, once a symbol of medical limitation, now represented something more profound. It was a testament to her ability to be reconstructed, to find strength in the broken places, to transform challenges into opportunities for growth. The reclamation of power wasn't about revenge. It was about establishing a new framework of understanding. About demonstrating that true strength comes from resilience, from strategic intelligence, from an unwavering commitment to one's own dignity. Sarah Martinez had entered this battle as a mother fighting for her rights. She emerged as something more, a symbol of veteran resilience, of strategic intelligence, of the unbreakable spirit of service. The power had always been hers. She had simply chosen to reclaim it. The community center's conference room overlooked a small veterans' memorial garden, a fitting backdrop for Sarah Martinez's most introspective moment. Winter light filtered through expansive windows, casting long shadows across carefully arranged photographs that chronicled her journey, military service, family moments, legal battles, personal transformation. Surrounded by her veteran support network, Sarah began the profound work of understanding. This wasn't about cataloging past injuries, but about comprehending the complex tapestry of human relationships, of generational dynamics, of the unspoken narratives that shape families. Rosa, her Air Force veteran friend, brought a pot of strong coffee. The ritual of sharing stories was as old as military service itself, a way of processing experience, of finding meaning beyond the immediate circumstances. "You've done more than fight a legal battle," Rosa observed. "You've rewritten the entire narrative of what it means to be a veteran, a mother, a woman finding her power." Michael's actions weren't born in a vacuum. Sarah understood this now with a clarity that surprised her. The corporate culture that had shaped him, the generational shifts in family dynamics, the economic pressures that had transformed relationships into transactions. These were systemic challenges, not personal betrayals. Her engineering background provided a unique lens. Just as she had once analyzed complex infrastructure systems, she now examined the intricate systems of family, of generational communication, of power dynamics. Each interaction was a component, each relationship a complex network of expectations, fears, unspoken desires. The veteran support groups became her primary avenue of reflection. Shared stories revealed patterns. Veterans who had been systematically marginalized, families that had transformed love into a transactional relationship. Sarah's experience was both unique and devastatingly common. Her grandchildren became a focal point of understanding. The carefully controlled interactions, the years of limited connection, these weren't just about Michael and Elena's actions. They represented broader societal challenges of how families communicate, how love is expressed, how generations understand each other. Sarah began writing, not as a form of revenge, but as a method of understanding. A book emerged, part memoir, part systemic analysis of veteran experiences, of family dynamics in a rapidly changing economic landscape. Publishers recognized it as more than a personal story. It was a sociological examination of contemporary family structures. Her titanium knee, now a permanent part of her physical narrative, became a metaphor for broader understanding. Just as the surgical implant had been precisely engineered to restore mobility, she was engineering a deeper comprehension of human relationships. Psychological evaluations, legal documents, family communications. Sarah approached them with the same analytical precision she had once applied to infrastructure projects. Each document was a piece of a larger system, each interaction a component of a complex human network. The veteran advocacy work expanded. Workshops, speaking engagements, legal consultations. Sarah transformed her personal experience into a broader mission of understanding and empowerment. She wasn't just sharing a story. She was creating a framework for other veterans to understand their own experiences. Michael's perspective began to emerge through conversations, through carefully documented interactions. The corporate culture that had shaped him, the economic pressures that had transformed familial relationships, these were systemic challenges that extended far beyond individual actions. Elena Rodriguez became more than her attorney. She became a collaborator in understanding. Together, they began examining the broader legal and social systems that allowed such familial betrayals to occur. The case was becoming a landmark study in veteran rights, in family dynamics. The community living center where Sarah resided transformed into a hub of reflection and understanding. Support groups, workshops, collaborative research, each became an avenue for deeper comprehension of veteran experiences, of family dynamics. Her military engineering background proved to be her most valuable tool. Complex systems were never about individual components, but about understanding interconnections, about recognizing how different elements interact, influence, transform each other. The Veteran Support Network expanded its mission. Sarah's story became a catalyst for broader conversations about veteran rights, about familial responsibilities, about the complex ways love and support manifest in contemporary society. Financial independence became more than an economic achievement. It was a form of emotional and psychological liberation. Sarah was demonstrating that true power comes from understanding, from comprehension, from the ability to see beyond immediate circumstances. The property at the center of the dispute became a symbol of broader societal challenges. What had begun as a personal conflict was now a case study in veteran rights, in family dynamics, in the complex ways economic pressures transform human relationships. Her grandchildren began to understand the deeper narrative. Carefully curated interactions revealed layers of family history, of generational experiences. Sarah wasn't seeking to replace their parents' narrative, but to offer a more nuanced understanding. The legal battle was no longer the central narrative. It had become a pathway to deeper understanding, to comprehension of the complex systems that shape human experiences, that transform love into something more calculated, more transactional. Sarah Martinez had entered this journey as a mother fighting for her rights. She emerged as a scholar of human relationships, of veteran experiences, of the intricate ways power and love intersect in contemporary society. Understanding, she realized, was the most profound form of healing. Spring arrived with a promise of renewal. The community center's garden, which Sarah had helped establish, burst into bloom, a living metaphor for her own journey of transformation. Vibrant tulips and carefully tended perennials stood as a testament to resilience, to the power of nurturing something beautiful from challenging ground. The property that had once been the center of her legal battle now served a greater purpose. Transformed into a veteran support and resource center, it became a beacon of hope for veterans facing similar challenges. Sarah's engineering background guided its renovation, every space carefully designed to support healing, empowerment, and community connection. Her book, Titanium Spirit: Reclaiming Power Beyond Service, became more than a personal memoir. It was a roadmap for veterans navigating complex family dynamics, a comprehensive exploration of resilience, of finding agency in the most challenging circumstances. Publishers recognized it as a landmark work, part personal narrative, part sociological analysis. Speaking engagements took her across the country. Veterans groups, legal conferences, community centers, Sarah shared her story with a combination of strategic precision and emotional depth. Her titanium knee, now a symbol of her journey, stood steady as she addressed audiences about resilience, about redefining personal narratives. The relationship with her grandchildren began to reshape, not through grand gestures, but through meaningful, intentional connections. Video calls became opportunities for sharing stories, for understanding. Sarah shared tales of her engineering projects, of military service, creating bridges of connection that transcended the previous familial tensions. Michael's perspective began to shift. The professional and personal consequences of his actions had created space for reflection. Conversations, initially stilted, began to reveal a more nuanced understanding. It wasn't reconciliation, but a careful acknowledgement of complexity. The veteran support network she had helped build became her most significant legacy. Support groups, legal resources, financial planning workshops. Each program was designed to empower veterans to reclaim their narratives, to understand their worth beyond service, beyond family expectations. Her consulting work expanded. Infrastructure, development projects, veteran support initiatives, community rebuilding efforts. Sarah's engineering background found new purpose. She wasn't just rebuilding physical structures, but helping veterans rebuild their lives, their sense of self. The Community Living Center became a hub of innovation. Sarah designed programs that went beyond traditional senior support, creating spaces for veterans to connect, to share, to find new purpose. Her titanium knee, her symbol of resilience, became a metaphor for the center's mission. Financial independence had transformed from a legal victory to a broader mission of empowerment. Multiple income streams, writing, speaking, consulting, created a model of economic resilience for veterans. She wasn't just supporting herself, she was creating a blueprint for others. Her grandchildren began to see her differently. No longer a distant figure, but a woman of complexity, of strength. Birthday cards now carried deeper messages. Video calls became opportunities for genuine connection. Sarah wasn't trying to replace their parents, but to offer a different perspective on love, on family, on resilience. The legal battle became a catalyst for broader change. Her case had exposed systemic vulnerabilities in how families treat aging veterans. Legal experts, veteran advocacy groups began using her experience as a benchmark for protecting veterans' rights. Rosa, Tom, Margaret. Her veteran support network became her chosen family. These were connections built on mutual respect, on shared understanding, on a commitment to supporting each other's growth. Family, Sarah had learned, was about choice, about intentional connection. The garden she had helped establish became a living metaphor. Each carefully tended plant represented a piece of her reconstructed life, deliberate, strategic, full of unexpected beauty. The seeds of resilience she had planted were now bearing fruit. Publishing her book wasn't just about telling her story. It was about creating a resource, a beacon of hope for veterans facing similar challenges. Each chapter was carefully crafted to provide not just a narrative, but practical guidance, strategic insights. Her advocacy work expanded beyond veterans. Women facing familial challenges, individuals navigating complex personal dynamics. Sarah's story became a universal narrative of reclaiming power, of finding agency in the most challenging circumstances. The property dispute was now a distant memory. What remained was a powerful story of transformation, of understanding that true power comes from resilience, from strategic intelligence, from an unwavering commitment to one's own dignity. As the sun set over the Veteran Support Center, casting long shadows across the carefully tended garden, Sarah Martinez reflected on her journey. She had entered this battle as a mother fighting for her rights. She emerged as a beacon of hope, a symbol of resilience. New beginnings, she realized, were not about erasing the past. They were about understanding it, about transforming challenges into opportunities for growth, for connection, for unexpected beauty. Call to action. If you've been touched by Sarah's incredible journey of resilience, of reclaiming power, we invite you to subscribe to our channel. Hit that subscribe button and notification bell to join a community of storytellers who believe in the power of human resilience. Share this story with someone who needs to hear that they are not alone, that their voice matters, that transformation is always possible. Your story isn't over. It's just beginning.